Welcome to Diplomatic Passport, where we give you daily weekday updates on the COVID-19 situation and current affairs issues, answering the questions which matter the most to you, our valued viewers. My name is Rob Mkundiwa. Now, as always, we start by taking a look at Zimbabwe's COVID-19 cases as of the latest data released by the Ministry of Health and Childcare. So Zimbabwe now has 6,412 confirmed cases, including 196 deaths and 5,061 recoveries, which translates the national recovery rate to 78%. Now, new cases, of course, have been recorded over the past 24 hours, and those cases, they are all local transmission, and all of them have been isolated. Harare is still the epicenter, of course, of the COVID-19 crisis in the country, with 2,532 cases, followed by Bulawayo, which now has 1,274 cases of COVID-19. Now, the World Health Organization estimates that between 2030 and 2050, climate change will cause approximately 250,000 additional deaths per year. A report by the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research indicated that climate change and loss of biodiversity has increased the risk of future pandemics by endangering the fragility of the world's ecosystems. Now, as carbon emissions continue unhalted and unabated worldwide, the effects of global warming are now upon us. The world's poorest communities are the hardest hit, obviously, and those in Africa are frequently experiencing extremes of weather outside the natural variability of African climate. Of course, Zimbabwe has not been spared from the effects of global warming. According to the Meteorological Services of Zimbabwe, since 1987, the country has experienced its 6th warmest years on record. Now, this has seen the country experience extremes of weather over the past 2 decades. We have had to deal with 10 droughts, decreased freshwater, and destroyed biodiversity. Now, to help us understand this very important issue that has a bearing on the future, of course, of the world and our nation, is the National Coordinator, the African Youth Initiative on Climate Change, Zimbabwe, Jean-Bertrand Mandu. Welcome, of course, to Diplomatic Passport, and it's a pleasure indeed having you here.
Thank you for having me.
Now, young people representing different causes, constituencies, social backgrounds, ethnicities and genders, and of course languages came together for an unprecedented action, and we're going to be looking at this as we go forward. But in the meantime, to help us understand what we're going to then see as we go forward is, of course, Mr. Mandu. Tell us about climate change. This is something we're battling with coronavirus, and the world seems to have our attention on that. Why is climate change such an important issue when we're in the middle of another pandemic that we can see, feel, and sometimes even hear?
Yeah, I mean, from the background itself, the climate is one of the things that we rely on as the planet, because that's the environment that we survive in. So its uncertainty or its disturbances then cause a huge negative impact on the planet and the people, or anything that survives on it. So that's the reason why everybody is trying to get off their feet and see how best we can go about it, because right now, as you were saying earlier, there's so many negative impacts that is causing already because of some actions that we have put through over the years. And now it's high time we do something about it, because they are often increasing every day.
So some people may want to know what the main threats are. You know, when we talk about other pandemics or other problems or other issues like COVID, people want to see the effects to believe that this is there. So what are some of the greatest problems that are posed by climate change?
Climate change is quite rare. It's quite rare. Like, nobody would know what to expect and when to expect. That's what makes it even more difficult and more, bad for us. So some of the things that we might face as the likes of droughts. There are so many things that are happening with droughts due to high temperatures. There are so many things that are happening due to, the temperature changes in terms of heat waves. We might get heat waves as a result of that. We have so many floods that are taking place. We have hurricanes, we have cyclones that are taking place. And these sort of things, they lead into one another. For instance, as a result of floods or flooding, you might end up having, you know, uncertainty when it comes to food security. You won't harvest as much as you would like to as a result of droughts. Same thing. So it has implications time and again, and it also affects health. It affects also, you know, health in terms of there's mental health aspect. There's also an issue of diseasing. It's coming up every day. You might never know what to expect.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And tell me more about your initiative, this particular initiative that you work for. What do you do there? What's your day-to-day like? And perhaps just the ethos of the whole organization.
Yeah, given that as a younger generation, we have to find a sense of belonging on a planet. We have to contribute something because we have seen the call for leadership when it comes to response. We are facing so many challenges, but how do you respond to it? We have come together as young people and we have decided that we need to take urgent action towards climate change. So by urgent action, we have to build resilience in our communities, make sure that our communities are able to adapt to the harsh impacts that climate change poses to us. For instance, if we talk of food, like I was saying earlier, if we have droughts, we have to find a way to harvest water. This could be underground water for domestic use, even for crops themselves. We have to find alternative ways to, you know, to make water-resistant crops, something like that. So there are so many initiatives that we work on. These include from research itself. We gather indigenous knowledge, we gather technology, we gather so many information that is coming out there to see how best we can come up with innovations that can help us to adapt. And then also, in the same sense, we have to also start acting towards mitigating the impacts. We can't, you know, just adapt, whereas we keep on emitting as much as we can. So we have to put up a voice in terms of advocacy and ensure that we influence policy and decisions that are being made globally, locally, and, you know, like regionally. Yeah. So we have to influence them positively so that they are aware about these environmental issues and the environmental impacts, and they are climate friendly to our communities.
And you did talk about something very important when we talk about our carbon footprint that we leave behind. You mentioned health, because all over the planet at the moment, there are a lot of people who are now weaving how interconnected things like even COVID-19 would be to climate change. Some people would think those are two different things that were, you know, chalk and cheese. But a lot of people are saying some of these diseases are coming and manifesting as a result of perhaps how we've been treating the climate and our planet.
Yeah, I mean, there's no proven science yet that links directly COVID-19 to climate change. But of course, some behavior is something that we wouldn't want. We have to ensure that we keep our nature intact, our wildlife intact, because the moment we mess with it, we don't know what comes next. So of course, climate change harshly has very, very much implications when it comes to health, given that if we destruct, you know, the ecosystem, the biodiversity, some are saying this is as a result of some people, you know, eating some pangolins or whatever creatures that are there out there. So if we keep the nature intact, the nature as it's supposed to be, this ecosystem as it's supposed to be, then we're not going to have these problems. So of course, there is a relative interlinkage there, but we have to make sure that we do not disturb the ecosystem, but try to help it thrive for the better instead.
And then I'd like to look at the fact that people have got this attention span, which is not as wide. You know, when we've got coronavirus and we're battling coronavirus, other causes like HIV and AIDS, like cancer, for example, like climate change, they tend to be drowned out by a new epidemic or a new something that's taking, you know, the media spotlight. How do you keep the story of climate change alive at a time when there's an even bigger story, as it were, around COVID-19?
Yeah, I mean, it's evident that climate change is a huge thing. I mean, every day, even, you know, battling COVID-19, there's something that is interlinked to it. For instance, the climate, people talk about, you know, the weather itself. When we have high temperatures, it helps us to fight or to battle against COVID-19. So imagine not having that at all, not being able to rely on your weather, because we live in an environment. So the urgency of it, because we are facing these implications every day, keeps it relevant either way. So we have to find a good balance, because I will tell you that for us, or for the whole continent or the planet, I would say Climate change could be more riskier. I don't want to put it into scale because they are both bad situations, but it could be more riskier in the sense that it wipes out without even negotiation, without even medical attention. It's destruction at its own, like it won't leave anything. Give you a good example of Cyclone Idai. Imagine how many things were affected then. You know, there's no room, there's no second chance for you to survive. So that's why you have seen that countries have all matched up, you know, through the Conference of Parties that have gone through and through, and now we are hoping to be having the next one in UK next year, COP26. These Conference of Parties dictate, or they are asking countries to put aside their geographical, you know, boundaries and see how best we can come up with a solid idea to fight this. Because right now, if I may say, our global temperatures are heading towards 3 degrees, and we are supposed to be maintaining at 5 degrees and maybe go beyond 0, or we go towards, you know, a no carbon footprint by 2050. So how do we balance those things, because we are at risk now?
We certainly are. And if you're just joining us, you are here watching Diplomatic Passport. Keep your contributions coming to my Twitter handle at ZimRobbie, that's ZIMROBBIE, and my email address at robinkondiwe@ztn.co.zw. We shall pause for a break, and when we'll be back, we'll continue to look at climate change in this world and age of COVID-19.
Nature is our home and the very basis.
You're back here on Zim Papers Television Network, and of course you are watching Diplomatic Passport. Now, young people representing different causes, constituencies, social backgrounds, ethnicities, genders, geographies and languages came together calling for unprecedented action in terms of this whole issue that we're talking about.
And dispose of things, and the unequal way that the benefits and damages of all this economic activity is distributed.
And our current values and principles underpin this system, driving unlimited production, unlimited profit, and unlimited growth, which is incompatible with our one and only planet.
We say enough.
Enough of these short-term, quick fixes and shallow solutions to deep systemic societal and environmental struggles.
We can do better than this. We can think deeper. We can be more caring. We can change. And together, we can transform.
We call for a real transformative change. We call the whole of society to realign our priorities, our values, behaviors and actions. Let's reinvent the system, share our benefits of this fabric of life equitably and sustainably.
Let's commit to a collective future in peace, in equity, and in harmony with nature.
Now, Zimbabwe conceptualized and has implemented the carbon tax legislation that was designed to combat greenhouse gas emissions across the country. Now, the tax was based on the application of the polluter pays principle. Now, the paper observes that in the early stages of its implementation, the tax was collected as a separate amount of money from motorists. Now, however, with the passage of time, the tax was incorporated into the fuel tax price, and for that reason could therefore have lost its deterrence effect. So, I want to come back to you, and we're talking about these very, very important issues. And you talked about the Congress of the Parties, which is COP. Just in general, what people may want to understand what the Congress of the Parties does, and you talked about the next one being in the United Kingdom, and what you expect should be the next step that humanity should take with regards to this very important issue of dealing with climate change?
Yeah, the Conference of Parties is the high-level body of the United Nations that makes decisions that governs all the climate action that is taken by countries. So there, all countries are equal, and this tries to put up, as a result of Paris Agreement, which was COP21, which was established at COP21, countries agree to every other country playing a role. For instance, in Zimbabwe, we agreed to play a critical role in our national determined contributions, that we have to contribute something towards this global action. So as Zimbabwe, what we are contributing is reduction in emissions by 33%. So that is our goal.
And how do you think you can perhaps achieve that? What are some of the things you're doing to try and achieve that?
Yeah, just like you referred earlier about the tax, the carbon, the polluter pays principle. So right now the nation has developed what we call a low emission development strategy. This speaks to sectors such as transport, sectors such as agriculture, what we call afolu, agriculture and other land uses. We speak to the issue of pollution itself. So in each and every sector, we are looking at innovations that bring about clean ways of greening that particular area. For instance, in agriculture, maybe we're considering regenerative agriculture. In terms of energy or in terms of industry, we're considering using clean energy. In terms of transport, maybe we are resorting to mass transportation, the issue of buses, trains, and also cycling. So this is like a strategy that the country has developed for Zimbabwe to use, and these are the measures and ways that we are working towards. And maybe getting back to COP, so this is sort of like a guidance, and at COP26 what we expect, because COP25 we failed to agree on certain things. We have some factors or some stages that we agreed to. For instance, the issue of gender, the issue of education being a critical component, but there are some other gaps that we have to finalize. We have to have a rule book that entails that each and every country should abide to this, each and every country should do this.
Because it's easier if something is aligned in this, as you say, a rule book. Because we are seeing, back to the tax again, for example, we say this is what we're doing to try and also, halt emissions and what have you, and polluter pays is important. But do you think that in the local context, do you think that's working in terms of that tax? Do you think it's deterrent enough, or do you think a little bit more needs to be done? Yeah,
it's not as effective as it should be, and there's more to be done, because you can see there's a lot of destruction of, so many things. Speak about wetlands, speak about, mining. There's lots of land degradation that is taking place, and to us as young people, those are some of the things that we are not tolerant to, and we are struggling every day to get the authorities to jump enough, fast enough, be quick enough, be intolerant towards those things, given the critical role that it plays within our society. So we're trying to push in terms of education, capacity building, put the power to the communities, because if the communities don't understand it, then they won't stand up for it. So the younger generation, given the numbers, the popularity that they have, then it means that if we give them that line of thinking and they start having the knowledge of what is important, and they prioritize it within their societies, then they are going to take care of their, of their wetlands, whatever that they have, and hold accountable whoever that is trying to destroy that.
But that's the thing, and I think this is the final thing I wanted to focus on, how sexy something is. I'll tell you this because, for example, the HIV and AIDS story found it very difficult to get into mainstream media because it wasn't sexy enough or interesting enough. As opposed to, for example, COVID, which had the numbers and figures and shutdowns, and people were shocked into listening. But people may not see the climate change story as being a sexy enough story because we're not seeing the devastation coming all in one day. And how then do you make that story interesting enough for young people to know how important it is, and also to encourage them to push the climate story?
Yeah, but I don't want to sound like the serious one out here, but it all goes down to the gap. The gap has been growing every day. People have grown more selfish, people don't care about stuff. And for us, Africa, we're more communist than capitalist, and it affects us in terms of how we relate to stuff. Like you're saying, it has to be sexy enough, to convince somebody. And the things such as social media, people are using it for, for jokes now, for not for something. All the communication that we're doing, if you tend to be the serious one, then you're not.
You're going to be drowned.
Yeah, but then That's where it all goes back. We have now to concentrate on what's important. You know, the issue of social accountability, they play a must role within our survival. It's all that ignorance that led it down. But anyways, we have to get to the people. We can't be serious alone at the top. Somehow we have to go and be sexy at the bottom and see our best. So one of the areas that we're using is we are engaging young people in high schools. I wouldn't define myself as youth still, because I'm about 26 years old, and we have somebody who's innovative who's 18 years old. So I'm trying to use or to engage them so that they familiarize with this corp and they see how sexy they are. Get familiarized with meeting with the ministers, give the ministers their opinion, tell the ministers that your idea doesn't work, so that they bridge that gap. At the same time, go to those societies where young people play soccer. Just watching, you sponsor the team, and tomorrow you tell them, I'm creating a tournament, plant a tree tournament, and it becomes something that is engaging. And the biggest gap of that is we haven't been getting resources. Resources are mostly spent at policy formulation level, but when it comes to the ground, the down beneficiary, and people, when we talk of money, people, they value money more than most things. So in order for a person who's in the rural area not to cut down a tree, you have to give them an alternative source of livelihood. So gathering those resources to influence them and make it appealing to them that, I'm going to pay you, which is something that we're calling for all these companies or these corporates that are making business. Please compensate these societies. You want to make profits.
To encourage them to leave. They need an alternative. For especially fuel. Some of them are still fueling with, of course, some things that may impact on our environment.
If you want to come and start mining in my society, my community, please make it appealing to me. Make me help you rehabilitate. Make me also be able to police you. So we're saying that people that are going to protect the trees, this could be like in our rural areas, people who are not going to be chopping down trees, ensuring wildlife is okay. National parks shouldn't be working on that alone, because it brings in a huge gap, and you end up shooting each other because of poaching, amongst many other things. But if you work together and you empower, you compensate, because people who are protecting wildlife in a certain society, if you give them the food, then they will protect it better. But if you don't, then they will say you are fighting against each other.
Become part of the problem. Jean Bertrand, thank you so much. We will be having more and more of you and more of these sort of discussions going forward here on Diplomatic Passport, and of course in Zimpepa's television network, as we strive to make sure that we look after our community. At 26, speak for yourself. I'm still a spring chicken at whatever age I am. Not quite a youth, he says, but that's Jean Bertrand, and he's been talking to us about climate change, of course, in this age of COVID-19. Now that has to be all from me today on this Monday. We've got 4 more days to go together this week. As I said, even if our cameras go cold and stop rolling, keep those contributions coming to my Twitter handle at Zimrobbie, again, ZIMROBBIE, and my email address, robinkundiwe@gmail.com. So from my team, my TD, Tapio Matindike, and from me, Robin Kundiwe, and the entire team, have a great evening, stay at home, stay safe, and have an absolutely great night.